Gizzard Lane. Why do we call her Gizzard Lane? Because these people see children as chickens. And of course, they're into harvesting. Right? Now, before we get into this show, understand there are many components to this story, and I don't believe for 1 second that the Justice Department arrested this woman for the reasons that they say that they did. If in fact she hadn't been arrested, because according to Snopes, the standard by which we should believe anything that is released in the media, the standard is that we have some kind of proof, right? You can't just make a statement without proof. So where's the proof? Now, if they show us proof, fine, we'll accept that. But to this point, we see no perp walk, we've seen no photographs, we see nothing. So I don't believe it. And the other component of this, the big white elephant in the room, everyone has seemed to have forgotten, is that there was a brand new release of flight logs the day before egg stains yolk was splattered all over the inside of the cell. The flight logs showed Donald Trump confirmed riding on the LL Cool J Express. Now, here's the problem that I have with all of this, is that this should be the #1 priority of the Justice Department and the FBI and whoever else is involved in this debacle. There should be mass arrests. Hollywood. Producers. Actors. Judges. These are called the elite, and they're all involved in this. Want to make a statement about this? Stop rounding up the low-level criminals. Or if you do round up low-level criminals, get some intel on them to build your case against the higher-ups, because obviously many of these people are basically just people doing the work for the elite. Although in the case of Gizzard Lane, she was doing a lot of the dirty work herself, driving into trailer parks and things to find these girls and meeting them during these foundations and appearing to help children, but in actuality doing just the opposite. So, Gizzard Lane is the topic of today's show. We're going to get into this. I believe this whole thing is a cover-up, basically grabbing the people who they think have dirt that goes all the way to the top. Why do you think they sealed the records? Why do you think they sealed the records? Because the information was so damaging that it could undermine the security of the United States government. So why is that any different now? Here we are once again, and we have no actionable intelligence. We don't have mass roundups. We've got a couple people that know a lot. One's gone, and the other is now, we're told, in custody. And you think she doesn't have a dead man's trigger? Like almost every person with this kind of knowledge would have. It's like wearing a vest, a bulletproof vest, right? Let me check and make sure we're connected. We'll get into this short clip of Gizzard Lane addressing the United Nations. And it's really her. This is no joke. This isn't fake news. We're going to get into this in a second here. Thanks everybody for coming up to the show this morning. Let's get cracking on this clip. Now let me give you a little bit of backdrop to what's going on here. She was heavily involved in the UN. She was really pushing this program called the Terramar Project. Why was she pushing this program called the Terramar Project? Well, she basically wanted to sell you back your own oceans. This is her here. And she gives this little speech about how there's all this free ocean out in the world and you can pay for it. You can pay for your own ocean by basically, what do they call that? You like give somebody money. They like sponsor the piece of ocean as if we really need to do, right? And then they take all this money and do whatever they're going to do with it. To me, it sounded like a scam from the get-go. We actually had talked about this and decoded this on the other channel, the Terramar Project, long ago. We started the hashtag arrest Ghislaine now. And apparently they're trying to show us that they're telling us that they did. But we'll see here in a second. Let's play a part of this. Now I'm going to break this up, obviously.
Thank you. Please.
I'll do my best. First of all, Your Excellencies, Presidents, Lords, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, let's get past all the...
I just would like to thank you so much, and it's such an honor to be here.
Who's this guy right here? I'd like to... Watch his face. See, all these people in this room, the very fact that she's sitting here, and they know, beyond the shadow of a doubt, most of these people in this room know what she's up to. Now, some people have offered the explanation that by somehow that this ocean idea that she had, piecing off and selling pieces of this ocean off, this had something to do with having command of seas and being able to have immunity from crimes, seas. Did you know that the LL Cool J Express was one of the only planes that could be opened mid-flight without decompressing, which would infer that things could be thrown out of the plane mid-flight in vast stretches of the ocean outside of shipping lanes, where it could be eaten by sharks and all the evidence erased. Going with this. Now, I want to also be clear before we continue. At the time that Donald Trump flew on this plane, he knew that the plane was named after children that get hurt. One time is too many.
I'm here representing civil society. My passion for the ocean, for those of you, there's a slideshow going
Civil society, yeah.
up there, so you don't just have to hear me, you can see the pictures as well. Started when I was a little girl. I grew up watching Jacques Cousteau on TV and became mesmerized with the oceans. It led to me becoming a deep worker submersible pilot.
So many people understand that this would be training that a spy would need. There was also other stories of a guy that she dated that said that she actually was involved in a helicopter. She was flying a helicopter. She was involved in some kind of action down in South America. Okay. So she's admitting here that basically she's a trained spy.
And ultimately, on one of my first dives, where I went down expecting to see a fish, I switched on the lights at the bottom of the ocean and saw a plastic hanger.
Plastic hanger is symbolic, and you can look into that. Hangers are hung on door handles to represent something. We'll get into that another show.
It was in that moment, actually, that I decided that I really wanted to focus my attention on the ocean. And the area of the ocean that I chose to focus on was the high seas, which we've discussed so much here today.
Now, this goes all the way back to Maritime, right? That's what this is about. Maritime law, high seas. The whole banking system is based off of this. Currency. That's why all of the banking terms are named after liquidation. Bank is the bank of a river. Current is currency. And it goes on and on and on and on. A lot of channels that have done work on uncovering law and the banking system and how they control us. So the very fact that she's trying to apply donations and money to the high seas is significant. This is interesting. Like the profile face here. Neck here. Hair tied up in a bun with body coming down here. very bizarre. This looks like almost like a man's profile. Single woman. Never noticed that before. Let's keep going with this.
But for those of you who don't know, it represents 45% of our planet. And by the way, that 45% of the planet belongs to each and every one of you here, because it is our global commons. Under UNCLOS, it is ours. It belongs to each and every one of us. And
she tells us it belongs to each and every one of us. But when you go to the Terramar site, they ask you for money for that part that already belongs to you.
Assets belong to us too. And I didn't know that when I started the history. The history of this started in 533 AD under Emperor Justinianus, whips through the Magna Carta. Of course, I have to give a nod to England.
So there you heard the Justinian comment. Now, this fits into exactly everything we've been talking about Justinian. And it just so happens to be 533 AD. And also, Justinian was basically the protege or sun worshipper emperor who followed in Apollo's footsteps, as well as Janus, two-faced god. See where all this is headed. All goes back to sun worship. Now let's keep listening here.
And then ends up in 1982 at the Law of the Sea Convention.
Now, 1982 is a really important year because it also follows the 19-year Metonic cycle. And we're going to cover that on Monday. Because what I found was that this year, 2020, I wish I could cover this, like, actually give you a little. 2020, I want you to look at the eclipses listed. June 21st, December 14th. Now we're going to go 19 years before that to 2001. And behold, the same exact dates of the eclipses. The summer solstice in December 14th. Now, this is very important because this is sun worship. Because 19 years before that, in 1982, you just heard her mention, 1982, we had the same eclipses. A few more added. June 21st, summer solstice eclipse, December 15th. Now, on this June 21st date, Prince William was born on the Apollo. And we'll get into way more detail on that on Monday. These are what are called the 19-year Metonic cycles. They are very important, especially when you have a lunar and solar conjunction. This is when they like to have their boogeyman, right? This year's boogeyman was CV. 19 years ago, it was 119. Backwards was the boogeyman. 19 years before that was 1982. And guess who the boogeyman was then? The Unabomber. There's always a boogeyman every 19 years. Now, let's keep going with what we're talking about, because she actually mentions chickens.
This area, our commons, are under peril for many reasons. One of the areas that of interest that I'm sure many of you are aware of is the shrinking ice at the.
So here we go with the fear, right? We need someone to manage all this. Just give us a little bit of money, more taxes. We'll be able to manage this and save the world, right?
Arctic. This is an Arctic map, and you can see the little white bits, which are the high seas areas that will remain. The ice is melting, the Northern Passage is opening. This will just be one of the areas that need to be discussed. And
now, notice how great this all sounds. Like if you're some kind of like leftist liberal, you're just eating this up right now. Let's say you didn't know anything about Gizzard Lane, right? And you're watching this. This is great. I think everyone should be involved. You should have seen how many people on our website actually donated money. Lots and lots of people. They raise lots of money. People are eating this up. This just goes to show that no matter how good somebody sounds on this elite level, that they can be corrupt. Obviously, there's a lot of proof against this one. So, this should tell you something about the elite. It doesn't matter what they're saying. Okay? If it looks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
And focused on in the time to come. What's the point of the why should we really care about the ocean? So 90 million tons of fish caught a year, and about a third of the fish harvested are used to feed livestock. What that means is we're feeding that to our chickens so that they can taste more like fish.
What does that even mean? Like, that's retarded. Feeding fish to our chickens so they can taste like fish? There's some coding going on there. I can't quite put my finger on it. But there's something going on here, because what does she care about what happens to the fish? Now, here's the other thing that I have to say about this whole fishing thing. Because most people who fish are not doing this. They're not in these giant boats collecting tons and tons. Shame on these people. I understand it supports an industry, but this is not normal. Catching all these fish at one time from the ocean. And that's not our fault. These are corporate interests. A lot of these elite are invested in these massive shipping companies. 2,000 years ago, they didn't have ships this big who caught this many fish out of the ocean. This is because of technology and advancement that they're able to do this. And then they want to blame us for die-offs and lack of fish in the ocean, and blame the guy with one boat, a 20-foot boat, or blame the guy on the shore who spends $100 just to drive his car 4 hours, pick up some bait, and throw a line in the water. Those are the people they're placing all the rules on, when they have absolutely nothing to do with what you're looking at your screen here. You see the hypocrisy. This is corporate financed. You don't get a boat, a multi-million-dollar boat like this, and drag all these fish out with some kind of investors behind. All right? Now you're starting to see the problem. All these rules, it has nothing to do with saving the earth. It's about control. And they want to control all of it. Because if they control all of it, then they control you. And then before you open your mouth and disagree with what they're talking about, you're going to be thinking about, wow, I need to go to work, I need to have a job, I need to go to the grocery store, I need to do all these things, and if I don't have freedom to do that because of choices I'm making, now maybe I'll just comply. Where all this is headed, we're at a critical time in history. We either stand up now to the lies and demand change peacefully, all the way to the top. There needs to be a complete renovation of all these governments of the world. Complete renovation, and stop believing the right-left lie. Because if there was something to be done and a candidate really wanted to do it, he could do it, because he could rally the people. He would have numbers far beyond any kind of dissent that he would get from other people in power. In other words, the political leader needs to come up with an ideas to reform and change, and rally the people behind him in unity, instead of dividing people through race, instead of dividing people through all the things that prevent us from getting things done. And this ship that you're looking at on the screen is a prime example of how things just keep going on as normal. Big white elephants in the room. Look, I don't need to go to the supermarket and always have a full selection of fish from the Arctic or from wherever it is that these fish come from in mass. I'd rather go and see locally caught fish that were caught on a much smaller scale instead of commercially. I would rather go and know that when I go down to a river or a lake or a stream or the ocean, I would rather the ocean be plentiful with fish again, because there isn't corporate fishing going on. So now when you want some fish, you go and do it the old-fashioned way. You grab a pole, and now there's a lot more fish in the ocean because they're not letting this happen. Does that make sense? Let's keep going with this. This is crazy. If you guys have any questions about the show, just copy your question and paste it back. When I come back in, we'll do a quick question and answer session because it's going to be one of our shorter. I think that's a reference to like chicken tasting like fish. I think that's a sexual reference. I want my honesty. Those that have minds to think and know what that's probably
like fish. Unsustainable fishing practices. This is just an example of that. We're so clever as a species that we have advances in extractive technologies. This is a sort of map, if you or picture, if you will, of one of the largest fishing nets in the world that can.
So that's the fishing net, and here's the funny thing. Okay, this is the firmament, and they know it. What is the 12? See, this is all a joke to these people. They're all laughing and snickering at each other, going, ha ha ha. Firmament. They're like each other with their elbow and each other, going laughing. Watch, wait, what you see this guy's face?
Contain 12 Boeing 747s, which is pretty big. The World Bank quotes, poor ocean management leads to approximately $50 billion in lost revenue annually.
Because what happens is, now look, what she's saying here is actually like true, but it's never going to change. And along with this, she's dovetailing this into more control. We don't need more control. We need them to stop funding corporate fishing like this. That's what we need. Okay, we don't need more rules and control. We just need to say, look, you can't take a $20 million boat onto the water and catch this many fish at a time. You just won't. It's just illegal now. And then guess what happens? A magical thing happens. All the fish start reproducing, and then there's a bunch of fish in the ocean. And then little guys with 20-foot boats can go out and catch local fish. And guess what? They only have so many hours in a day and so much energy and fuel to where they can't have the same impact as a giant boat. Does that make sense? Okay, let's keep going.
This is the actual tuna that was sold last year for $1.7 million. And I want to come to Palau, actually. As Karen said, 100 million sharks taken out of the ocean, have their fins cut off, and for fins very brilliantly close their waters to shark finning and ultimately $200 per fin into something worth through tourism. The use of our oceans, not only for the oxygen and the food, but also there has to be a link between industry and the people. Sustainable ocean, because without money at the bottom and without it's not going to work. So I started the Terramar project.
Here we go, the Terramar project. I love. Now I think this site has been taken down. Terramarproject. After all this hit, she got implicated. Pulled this down pretty quickly. Now there's more to this story, because in our research we found one of her victims, and we went to her website and found information on this girl who's now a woman. And in real time, as I was researching this website, it was pulled from before my eyes, right from my browser. Then I got a weird private message on Twitter from someone from the Justice Department who had been monitoring our channel, and said, look, we understand that you found this girl, but she's in protective custody, or she's being questioned to find out exactly what she knows, and we could either do this the easy way, you can pull your video down, or we could do this the hard way. And what I'll do is in the community tab, I'll pull up that guy's message and screenshot it so you guys can see what was sent to me. It looked very official. Way he was talking to me, right? It wasn't just some hoax or fly-by-night scammer. And that dovetailed with how it was pulled from my browser almost in real time, and I could no longer find these images of this girl It told me something. So, you see what I'm saying? There's all this information coming out, and they're looking at it, but yet they're not finding new perpetrators. They're trying to make us believe that it was only Ghislaine, Gizzard Lane, and Eggstain. And this went way beyond that. Way beyond that. In fact, the most entries in his black book was the Trump family. Ivanka, Ivana, his sons, there were numbers and numbers and numbers for the entire family. He had the most entries of any of the people in the black book, which tells you that this went far beyond. This was a family thing. It wasn't even just Trump. Why would he have a phone number for Ivanka and Ivana and the sons? Why would he have all those phone numbers in the black book unless they were all involved? You see what's happening now. This is a cover-up. It's a bait and switch because, yeah, these arrests are happening, but on the lower level. So he's going, hey, look, I'm doing something over here. Look over here, but don't look over there. And the presidency will end, or he'll get reelected, and no one will get arrested. Look, this could be a slam dunk for him. All he'd have to do is arrest Hillary and Bill. They must have proof on those two. Are you starting to see the cover-up here? Look, he could win a lot of points with people on the right if he would just go. I wouldn't believe him still if he arrested Bill, because I would know that she would never see jail time, and her sentence would be commuted probably with the next Democrat president. So I wouldn't even really believe that. That to me would be more smoke and mirrors. There needs to be dozens of people being arrested. This is huge, huge. And they're trying to say, oh, because of the CV, the process just takes too long. No, it doesn't. You gotta get on this. This has been going on for years. It went on for years even before Trump was elected. And during the Obama presidency, all going on, people were talking about this. Nothing was ever done. They were trying to cover it up. Otherwise, they would have done something about this a long time ago. Now, each and every one of you stayed on this story should be proud of yourself, because through us keeping this alive in the news, the victims were more forthright in coming forward. You see what I mean? If this was never in the news, the victims might be afraid to come forward. But they know there's a lot of people that want to know the truth. This should be still the number one story in the truth, because we can actually do something about it if we keep talking about it. Whereas other things, we might not have enough momentum or evidence or this or that. But we have evidence with this. There are victims. So, here we are, the Terramar Project.
And the point of the Terramar Project is to connect each and every one of us to our global oceans, to the high seas, because it does belong to you. We give you a passport, a daily online newspaper, an education platform.
That's important. A passport. What are they threatening now? Look, we can't even travel now because of this whole CV thing.
A government structure and a way to connect to your oceans as you never have been able to before. Fish do not vote, but we do. And if we do, and we tell our politicians that we want the oceans to become sustainable, then...
See how they're dovetailing this into sustainability, which basically means more rules, not just for the corporate fishermen, but for everybody. Okay? Now all of a sudden you can't catch that fish and eat it anymore. You can look at it and scuba dive, but you can't eat it. Now, this is interesting because this look at this. This is crazy. The I am walking on water. This is Antichrist right here. This is like depicting Jesus. 3, that's 33. Remember she said Justinian in 533? Waves and 3 down. That's 33.
the goal is to have every politician end up with a policy framework and a decision on how they treat the oceans, and hopefully that will be sustainable, because that is what we, the people, want. A sustainable development goal at the UN is...
this guy's name is Sack.
I think a fantastic thing. The United Nations is absolutely the right place to lead this.
Look at that. That to me looks like trafficking. All these children's hands across the world. Look where this finger is here. That's pointing to St. James. Right there. Haiti? Look, it's a black hand too. Haiti and the whole Clinton Foundation thing. This is how they nod to each other. Little things go right over most people's heads. So if Bill and Hillary were looking at this, they'd be like laughing. They'd be traffic. See this? What's happening here?
They are the only place that has this global reach. All the people can come together to create this goal that will then be the planetary mandate for the next 15 years of how we...
I don't like that word mandate. Now this was posted in 2014. This is relatively recent.
Treat our oceans. So I really want the people, each and every one of us, 7 billion of us on the planet, to come together, to sign up, to get your passport, to make your voice heard, so that the UN and each ambassador can hear what's what we want, and all politicians know that no sustainable ocean means we won't vote them back into power. If we won't vote them back into the power, then they're out.
I think that's about it, you guys.
We'll find someone who will, to support the oceans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Low on adrenochrome. She's stuttering quite a bit, wasn't she? All right, so let's go back in here into the chat. Let's see what you got. I thought this was very important. Break down her words in her words, reveal and uncover the hypocrisy of the whole thing. Show you how all of this is about more control. Cutting in and out. Part of yeah. All right. So someone said yes, she said Justinian. Thanks, Leah, for the new membership. Yeah, it's all about the money. And, you know, a true leader of the free world needs to be bold. If we have real change, it's not happening right now. It's not even close. It's at like 5%. We're getting like piecemeal, we're getting excuses, we're getting placating, we're getting words, but really no action. Right back where we started. Setting in and out. Messing with the sound. That's probably true. Everything's plugged in correctly, so that's probably what's happening. Censorship edits. Probably muting the line. Who knows? Well, we're going to go ahead and end the show. You guys share this far and wide. We will talk tomorrow, or actually Monday. Take care. Be safe, everybody.